In the moonlit embrace of rural Victoria, the decadent town of Buckley beats with a hidden heartbeat, the sanctuary of free-willed kindred. An anarch haven since the gold rush, Buckley's shadows hold secrets, its nights untamed. Yet the looming spectre of the Camarilla now threatens the delicate balance. As long-forgotten feuds simmer, a group of neonates bound by loyalty and survival find themselves at the epicenter of a power struggle. The Camarilla's tendrils tighten, and Buckley teeters on the brink of open war. Welcome to the dance of shadows in Buckley, where the anarch flame flickers against the encroaching night, a tale of defiance, politics, and the seductive allure of eternal power. This is Creatures Such As We, a Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition actual play podcast, presented by DM Fiat. I am your storyteller, Dale, or DG, and tonight I shall be your guide through this hidden and treacherous world of darkness.
Hello, coterie. Last time, the powder keg exploded, and you were the spark. You went into the Church of the Guiding Light and not only took down Wisteria's sire, but through a series of coincidences managed to bring down Alexander Pierce as well. And that's not forget about the Second Inquisition finally making their presence known on the scene, gunning for Wisteria, hurrying you out of that church. The last moment, scurrying away like scared dogs into the night, you just barely managed to escape with your unlives intact. But you scraped a victory nonetheless. And so, it's been very surprising to you all that for the last month or so since then, life for the kindred of Buckley has continued on relatively unchanged. You aren't hearing any stories of anyone having their havens raided in broad daylight. You aren't hearing about firebombs being thrown into Elysiums. You aren't hearing about Cam foot soldiers invading Anarch territory. The fighting, if it's happening at all, seems to be happening in secret, in the shadows, away from prying eyes, most likely. Because this is how vampires do war. The fighting, quote-unquote, is happening in boardrooms and behind closed doors. But there have still been a couple of strange little things going on. You've heard stories of disappearances here and there. Neonates who have cut contact with their sires and dropped off the radar. Fledglings untrained who simply ceased to exist. But for the most part, unlife continues as it always has. So let's figure out what you've been doing with your unlives since then. Wisteria, you made good on your promise to Mr. O, and we role-played that in the text channel, and I will recite that now for the podcast audience.
Well, Wisteria thinks, it's time to keep my promise. Wisteria hasn't seen Mr. O in a few nights. Between scrambling to make last-minute preparations for the Second Inquisition and the Baron's sudden doting interest in her, it's been hard to snatch a few minutes away at the safe house. He hasn't tried to escape, ma'am. Glenda informs her, with a note of bitterness in her voice. Won't shut up about the damn embrace, though. He's like a little kid waiting for Mummy to get home from the supermarket with a bag of lollies. Indeed, Mr. O looks like an overgrown child. As soon as he spots Wisteria walking with Glenda across the motor court, his eyes widen in wonder and anticipation. It's time. Wisteria casts Glenda a knowing look. There's quite a few reasons he's getting his wish here. Come along, watch and learn why one should be very careful what they wish for. She points at an old chair, directing Mr. O to take a seat, and then kneels down opposite. All right, Orson, Wisteria says. Per our agreement, you know how this night ends, dear chap, but first I think we should talk. Now, I'm not going to use any powers on you. I'm not going to try to talk you out of it, but at the end of our conversation, if you want to reconsider, then I'll understand and shan't think any less of you. She nods to Glenda. Glenda rushes across the room and, meeting eyes with Mr. O, retrieves a neatly typed pile of documents from a desk at the back of the room. It's the documents that Wisteria ordered Mr. O to type out everything he has on black. Peering into Mr. O's eyes, Wisteria fishes a pack of cigarettes and a lighter out of her handbag and offers him one as she lights up her own. Tell me about yourself. Give me the short bio. Where were you before Wild found you? What did you do before and after? She drags a long pull. Who did you leave behind that you regret? Mr. O studies Wisteria for a moment, clearly unsure what to make of her. Behind his eyes, she catches a brief flash of annoyance, or perhaps anticipation. All right then, he finally says. He pries a cigarette from her hand, lights it, and takes a long pull, obviously savouring it. He blows a plume of smoke into her face, then takes another drag. Within a few moments, the motel room is bathed in a dull haze. Tell me if you've heard this story before. The year is 1946. Economy's in shambles after the war, and will be for a few more years. Young Mr. O claws his way into the world, another middle child in a family of 6. Dad lost his leg in the big one. Mum and kids worked themselves to the bone to scrape together just enough to keep everyone fed. Life is shit, and even as a young lad, I knew it wasn't getting any better. Not for people like us. Takes another drag on the cigarette, longer this time. He exhales, sending a plume up into the haze, then continues. You've got to do what you can to survive. I was a shithead kid from a working-class family who never got past primary school, who never had daddy's money to fall back on, like some. He gestures vaguely in Wisteria's direction. So, by the time adulthood comes around, I've learned to be a bit morally flexible. That's what got me noticed by Wild. Pauses for a moment, letting the half-finished cigarette dangle in his hand. He stares wistfully into the smog. Bet you thought Wild pulled the old Sedite charm on me, didn't you? Come, embrace chaos and cast aside the chains that hold you down. Nah, never was much of a believer in that crap, not set and a pep and all that mumbo-jumbo. In any case, living a life like mine, though, doing what you have to in order to survive, taking by force what society refused to give you. Suppose I believed in the spirit of it, at least. Anyway, suddenly, it's 1962. Buckley's been anarch for about 100 years already, but the Cam and Sabat are still making moves. Times are changing, and drugs are getting to be a lucrative business. Some enterprising vamps see a new way to get their fangs into Buckley, and the Baron has to get hands-on to lock them out. He's been out of the crim biz for quite a while by this point. Used to rely on Pierce to keep a handle on that part of the domain, but Pierce has been in torpor for a decade after the last big push from the Sabat. So, Wild needs a contact who knows what's up, knows how to get things nobody else can. Do these things for me, he says, and I'll elevate you above all this. Takes one last drag from the cigarette. contemplates the smouldering nub that's left, then ashes it on the edge of a wooden crate. Everything Wild has today is because of me. If he hadn't locked that shit down when he did, if he hadn't brought me on side to handle everything for him, then Nathaniel Black would be Prince today, and you wouldn't even be here. Then the bastard got complacent, sat on his laurels, propped himself up as the city's saviour, champion of the anarch cause, and took credit for everything I did for him. Mr. O lowers his head, reliving bitter memories. I still believed he'd give me the embrace. Hell, I'm sure he believed it. Just a few more things to do, I was told. Always a few more things to do. Be patient. Then, before I know it, the end of the century is rolling around. The Baron has actual vamps, like Kezia, holding down the crims for him, and I'm just a glorified butler. I would have taken just about any offer thrown my way. At that point, he pauses for just a moment, sighs, then looks up, meeting Wisteria's gaze. And I still feel bad for leaving the bastard high and dry. Honour among thieves, you know. Maybe he never meant to give me the embrace at all, but Wild was the one who showed me there's more to life than this. Wisteria nods, taking it in. You're right that I don't have much context for desperation. Not from money, at least, but what happened to your siblings? 5 others of them. Surely a few survived, had kids. Probably dead now, Mr. Rose says in a neutral voice. Most of the family didn't want jack shit to do with me, given the reputation I'd built for myself. Thought they were too good for the likes of me. Weren't too good for my money, though. Suits me just fine. He lets his words hang in the air as he reaches for another cigarette and lights it. Except Elsie, he says thoughtfully as he takes a pull. Baby of the family, you know. Adored her, I did, and she loved me in spite of what I'd become. Obviously, I had to keep my distance once Wild came into it and I stopped aging. She hasn't spoken to me since 1985, but I still keep an eye on her. Her eldest became a doctor, you know. Delivered his own child. There's an obvious, genuine hint of pride in his voice as he says this. Mysterious smiles. It's funny, you know. I was the black sheep of my family as well. Thought I'd never give 2 fucks for them after I got clear, but then they died. My parents. She puffs on the cigarette, looking out the window. I didn't think it would hit me so hard. That was what drew me back to London, what set this bloody mess in motion. And it's a hazard. She looks at Orson, catches his eyes. You blink, a decade's gone, and somebody who was a rock in your life, somebody you didn't know you love, is gone. You're going to have to work to keep tabs on Elsie, you know. You're smart enough to keep your distance, so that's good, but if you lose track of things, and it's easy to do that, then she'll be gone, leaving nothing but regrets. And if you didn't set all this in motion, I'd still be eating Thaddeus's shit, Mr. Rowe says bitterly. That was their deal, you know. Help them lure you into a trap, use you as an in to all the vamps of Buckley, and they'd give me what they wanted all this time. Make me a sleeper, they called it. Behind them, Jan opens the door and manhandles a large duffel bag in. It holds the former ghoul, the one Wisteria captured during the temple raid. Jan deposits him on one of the hotel room beds, pulling him out and arranging him as he sleeps. I figured would something like that, Wisteria nods. You know, even if they did make you a sleeper, you'd still be a loose end if they win. Just like I was. She grins a wicked smile. They might still get me by the time this is done. But we'll see. Figured as much, he agrees. But at least then I'd be a vamp, and I know how to hide. Wisteria nods. You'll also lose this. She holds up the cigarette. Doesn't bring me any pleasure, not like it used to. Even when it's in the blood, it's less of a taste and more of a memory. You lose all your vices, save for gluttony, and you'll be eating for 2. Your worst self will come out to play. You've seen that. I think. Mr. Rowe takes one last long, wistful pull, savouring every second. Smoked for 70-odd years. I've had enough for one lifetime. And that's the key of it, really. What lets me do this without much guilt. If you don't get the embrace, you're dust given time. Mr. Rowe looks Wisteria in the eyes, his expression firm. Believe me, I know what it's like to be a monster. Maybe not in the way that you do, but I've had no problem robbing, extorting, killing to save my own skin. Yes, but without vices, with empty pleasure, you'll have to figure out something to drive yourself. Do you have that? If you've got something, some vision or goal, then you'll have a shot. If you don't, then you're just delaying things. Boredom and the beast will eat you alive, so I hope you have something to keep yourself moving. The ghoul contemplates her words for a moment. After a few seconds, he nods. Oh, I won't lie to you and say I believe for a second in all that anarch crap. As far as I'm concerned, the cause is as bullshit as anything the Cam comes out with. Wild might have everyone sold on that equality, fair go for everyone stuff, but I know the real world doesn't work that way, especially not our world. One thing I can't stand, though, is people not getting what they deserve, what they worked for. I think I could find worse ways to spend eternity than empowering folks to make what they want out of life and not let any bastard stop it. Wisteria smiles. Well, that's anarchy too, you know. Merit over heritage. She slaps her leg, satisfied. That fellow over there, on the bed? The ghoul we liberated from Thaddeus. Who is he? What do you know about him? Good, bad, ugly? Cheats at cards? She nods at the fellow on the hotel bed. Mr. Rose snorts derisively. That one there, his name's Scott. Never learned his last name, but he bought all that set shit, hook, line, and sinker. Thought if he'd quote scripture all the time, he'd get the embrace within a couple of years. A useful idiot that Thaddeus would have just used up and thrown away. He smiles. Good at menial tasks, though. He sat behind the wheel of that van without complaint, driving around the same 2 blocks day after day, just because I told him set rewards those who know their place. Well, it's good you think he's decent, because he's going to be your first test, says Wisteria. He's your first meal, and if he lives, I'm sure he'll be useful to you. If not, well, then you'll have killed Scott. He's one of 3 gifts. Her eyes find Glenda and Jan as she speaks blithely about Scott being eaten alive. Glenda and Jan exchange hurried glances, but remain silent, professional. Sounds like a good deal to me, says Mr. O. He ashes the cigarette, stares wistfully at the remains, then leans forward. So he's 1 gift, the embrace is another. What's the 3rd? No, you bargained for the embrace. That's no gift. The 2nd gift is that van that you drove. Jan sunproofed the interior. Given you tangled with the Inquisition, you'll likely have to go off-grid for some time. Lie low. The 3rd gift is that I shan't tell the Baron what I've done to you for about a week. Which gives me more than enough time to get the hell out of Dodge. You know him better than I, but I expect he'll bluster and be sore with me for a time and then decide you're not worth going after. And if the Camarilla thing ends well, I expect after a decade or 2 it'll be water under the bridge. Jan quietly begins unfolding a tarp, rolling it under Scott, turning up the ends, just in case things get messy. Suits me fine, says Mr. O. I'm sick of this place. Let me try my luck in G-Town or something. Good thing about being somebody's bitch for so long is that you learn what places are safe for the bottom feeders. Yes, and you will be at the very bottom of the totem pole, my dear Mr. Orson. My blood's about a wink away from tap water. Good odds you end up a thin blood for sure. In which case, things get weird. I don't know much about them personally, but you'll be eating shit for a time. Mr. Rowe shrugs. See, the thing about spending damn near a century at the bottom is you figure out how to thrive as a big fish in a small pond. Besides, all I care about is never having to beg for a monthly fix ever again. Given everything going on with the SI, a vampire who passes for human probably has a much longer life expectancy than the real bloodsuckers. No offense. None taken. Wisteria grins, wide, and her teeth are long. She goes and closes the curtains. Then she clicks open one of her switchblades and nicks the sleeping Scott's forearm. She watches the blood well, just a bit. Then she waves Glenda and Jan back to the entryway of the hotel room. Watch! Jan, ready the road flares? Glenda, stay behind him. Then she plucks the cigarette from Mr. O, stubs her own out and gives him a look. Last chance to back out? The two ghouls nod dutifully and move into position. They've never done this before. They've never even witnessed anything like it, but they are professionals. Mr. O says nothing. He simply leans forwards, exposing his neck, and Wisteria sinks her serpent-like fangs into his flesh and drinks and drinks and drinks. When she feels him die, she bites her cheek and kisses him, forcing the blood into his dying lips. The last trickle of Mr. O's blood slides down Wisteria's throat. Almost losing herself in pure ecstasy, she nearly forgets what she's here for as the beast purrs content and falls silent. Wisteria pushes Mr. O's limp form back down into the chair. The two ghouls watch and wait, anxious, prepared to put the new monster down in a second. Several moments pass, then minutes. He doesn't stir. Is it supposed to take this long, ma'am? Asks Jan nervously. He's dead as a dodo. Finally, after what seems like an eternity, Mr. O twitches violently, throws his head back and gasps for breath. Behind him, Glenda screams in surprise. Jan readies a road flare seconds away from igniting it. Thirsty, rasps Mr. O. I need... His nostrils flare as he tastes the air, and something inside him registers the presence of fresh blood. Suddenly, he rises from the chair in a single motion, his dark eyes on the sleeping form on the bed. He moves to push past Wisteria. Please, he rasps, please, I need him. His pale face reminds Wisteria more of a sickly man than a monster. She can see the hunger in his eyes, that desperate, futile longing for sustenance, but there's no sign of the beast, no frenzy, at least not yet. There's something about those eyes that's not monstrous, but still human. Please, my sire, he rasps again, waiting for her to move. I need him. Then take, Wisteria says, and lets him have Scott. This is his test. After all. She does shield Jan and Glenda, while making sure Glenda has a clear view, watching her face to see how she'll react. Mr. O stumbles past, moving like a drunk. When he reaches the bed, his knees buckle, and he lets his body fall onto the unconscious ghoul. A moan of anticipation leaves his lips as his fangs, newly formed, pierce the man's skin. And Mr. O drinks, and drinks, and drinks. Wisteria is vaguely aware of Glenda peering over her shoulder, her wide eyes transfixed on the feeding, her face a mask of sheer terror and morbid curiosity. After a few minutes, Mr. O pulls himself away from Scott when he rises and faces Wisteria. It's clear something within him has changed. Suddenly composed, he licks a droplet of blood from his lip and gestures towards the still unconscious man. I took what I needed, and I needed more than I thought I would, but I stopped just before I took too much. On the bed, Scott gurgles uncomfortably in his sleep. His face is deathly pale, his breathing barely audible, but he'll live, and he will serve.
But what else has Wisteria been occupying her time with?
So let's talk about that fighting in boardroom, shall we?
Go ahead.
When you dump literally millions into a church, and you route all the business dealings of the Camarilla in Buckley through yourself, and you use the same set of accounts to fund several widely diverse projects, you leave yourselves open to a financial maneuver. She hasn't taken all of Black's money. No venture worth his salt puts all his eggs in one bucket. But she has taken a significant amount, and she is fighting like a mad dog to hold it.
How many dots in finance does Wisteria have?
3.
3. And is she employing her ever-faithful retainers?
Damn right she is. And then she in fact even borrowed a retainer from Gil to help do the daylight transactions, because that's how she's staying ahead. Is she's pulling a trick that'll probably work on Black once, and that is time zones. She's conducting most of her business during the day, so he's stuck relying on ghouls and servitors to try and intercept things.
Abby, Jan, and Brenda work hard, and they follow your instructions to a T. After all, Gil advised Abby to do everything you say, otherwise he'd be most unhappy. And, well, the other 2 retainers know enough of your dealings to be able to help her out. The 3 of them working together are a great asset, and I'd say combining that with your finance dots, giving you 6 dice altogether, which we won't roll, just saying you have 6 dice, would be more than enough to steal a considerable chunk of Mr. Black's assets out from under his nose, hide them away in the right offshore accounts, and set up just the right paper trails to make them ever so slightly too difficult for him to be able to claw back. And that's what you've been spending your days doing, Wisteria. What about the nights?
The nights? She's been talking with Aveline and Desiree, and working on deciphering the journal and that arcane information she found. She wasn't lying to the Brazen Mask when she said she'd see it return to its rightful owners. She just didn't mention when. If it takes her a century to decipher it, well, then it'll be returned a century later.
Desiree calls this a boon, and Wisteria, I think you would accept. After all, Desiree's got more important things to do with her time now that war is on the horizon and the services of a blood magician are incredibly valuable. She still finds the time to spend a couple of nights with you, with Avelina by your side in the grand library of the Ashford estate, pouring through tome after tome from the minute the sun goes down until dawn. Go ahead, Wisteria, and roll me an intelligence, academics, or occult check, and I will be rolling for Desiree and Avelina.
There is one more thing, but that's short, and we'll handle this first. Intelligence, academics. There is
or
no
occult.
Yeah, that thing she has nothing of. I'll go with academics. She's relying on Aveline for the occult. Aveline's the nerd for this stuff.
Yeah. Well, and you are in Aveline's library, though, so you may add 2 extra dice to the pool.
Well, now, that's 7 dice. Okay, let's see how we do. 5 successes. Okay.
5 successes, another 5 from Desiree, and 3 more from Avelina. 13 altogether. It's very easy to decipher the texts. Desiree and Avelina translate them within the first couple of nights. Avelina's library is stocked with more than enough materials to make sense of the more esoteric runes, and it soon becomes apparent that these texts are diagrams, formulas, incantations, a veritable treasure trove of magical knowledge left behind by the mages, and it's easy for Desiree to adapt the most promising of them to work with blood magic instead. A changed rune here, a slightly different incantation there, a different reagent or two. And suddenly, Wisteria, you find yourself equipped with the ability to perform magic, or at least magic as vampires understand it.
There we are.
What else?
Well, also a quick question. The arcane stuff. Can we get from what we need from copies, or do we have to have the original texts?
Seems as though making copies of the text seem to strip them of any magical power they hold, but as Desiree smugly explains, vampires don't cast real magic. They cast what mages would refer to as linear magic, and as such, the power comes from the vitae, not from the texts themselves. And so a copy would suffice for your purposes, though...
No, we'll refrain from making copies. These might be a bargaining chip at some point. There might be a way to get the mages out of the equation without having to go to war. But that's a problem for later. The last thing that Wisteria does, if we're ready to progress.
Go ahead.
The last thing that Wisteria does is slowly blood bond and interrogate that Inquisition agent, well, leaving the contingency we discussed.
It's very easy to do, because once you've blood bonded him, all the hard work is done. It's less of an interrogation and more of a pleasant one-on-one conversation. You simply step into the storage room at the back of your shop, sit down in the chair opposite him, and ask him whatever questions you feel you need to know. And your blood pouring through his veins, he divulges everything without hesitation. They're not trained to resist, not this. Is there anything in particular you want to know?
Number one, how much do they know about me, my base of operations, my people? Going for the selfish stuff first. And the coterie. Yes. How much do they know about my immediate sphere of influence?
The Inquisitor shrugs, and he says, about you? Well, we've got a dossier. Don't ask me for the details, because I haven't read it. It comes down from on high, but they know who you are, where you've been, everyone you've spoken to. They've been watching you for years. The others, though, and on this he pauses, well, I think the top brass maybe bit off more than they can chew. They thought, obviously you had a sire, and perhaps your sire had another vampire or two that he was dealing with, but small town like this, Buckley, less than 100,000 living souls, the last thing they expected was to encounter a nest, a hive. And I would say all the protocols are being thrown out the window, new ones are being drawn up, and they're scrambling to figure out how to get their foot in the door and control all of you.
Alright. How much support are they likely to have from London or other points abroad?
Pauses. He thinks for a moment. And he says, shrugging, Scotland Yard, at the very least. Maybe the Americans. Multinational coalition and everything, you know. But everything down under, up until very recently, has been in our hands, and the top brass don't take kindly to foreigners sticking their beaks in, but given what they've bitten off and everything going on at Melbourne as we speak, maybe they've got no choice but to call in outside help. And that's bad news, he says. Bad news for all of you, because Because the foreigners, they're much worse than what we got down under. They got the real tech, the stuff that can wipe you people from the face of this planet, and they are more than eager to bring it to bear. But they need a base of operations, he says, and, well, they've got the church, but is it enough? Is it enough to be able to launch a full crusade against an enemy that until recently they expected was much smaller and much more disorganized?
Now this is interesting. It sounds to me like you need a victory, but not too much of a victory. A victory that you can go back and say, well, we won, we got the vampires, and then go on about your merry way to the next port of call. All right. I think I see how to play this. Where can I put you so that your former associates, who are probably going to execute you if they found out what happened to you, won't find you on this continent? Where can I put you abroad? Do you have family you need to visit that they won't check up on? Something like that?
He raises an eyebrow. And here I was, thinking every vampire was a soulless, blood-sucking monster. At least, that's what I was told. But you spared my life down there in those sewers, and here we are, having a civil conversation.
Well, there's no need to be uncivilized about things.
I'm not naive enough. I'm not naive enough to ignore the role that you feeding me blood probably had in all of this. But for what it's worth, what my friends want to do with this city means nothing to me. I've seen enough. I just want out. And there are places I can go, safe houses, assets I can appropriate, but I will need a means of getting access to them. I will need a secure connection, and I will need time, and most of all, I will need your trust.
You know what? I think we can do this. It all sounds like everything you need is pretty much money, and I've got that to spare at the minute. It's not even my money. Don't mind giving it away. Go ahead and start. Yes, go ahead and start that. Now, I will keep you bound to me for a while until this all blows over, but if you do it right, you will probably come out of this alive, unless your old friends catch you again. That's not going to end well for any of us.
Smiles, but doesn't say anything, and then Brenda tiptoes into the room, laptop under her arm, and places it down on a wooden crate in front of him. He immediately leans over and starts typing, and he nods. He says, "Leave me with it. Let you know when I've got something. Never know."
Yeah. And later on, she'll check the phone quietly while Brenda's sleeping. The one she secretly placed to keep an eye on them.
I'll ask you to go ahead and make me a Dex stealth check on this one.
Well, can't really break in. It's my own place now, can I? But
No, but you will still need stealth.
I'll go ahead and boost for this. Get a little hungrier. Emotions are high. This is the test. How ambitious are you, Brenda? Glenda, actually. Her name's Glenda, and
That's right.
Best thief in the world.
It's been a month.
That's 7 successes.
7 successes. You wait until conversation in the back room dies out. Wait a few more hours for Glenda to emerge, head to her bedroom, close the door carefully shut behind her, and then you get to work. Fish her phone out of her handbag, get into it, begin browsing the history, the contacts, and the beast growls, rattles the bars of its cage in anticipation, waiting for the smoking gun. And the blood makes you paranoid. You can't blame Wisteria for being paranoid, not after everything she's been through, but Wisteria, everything on the phone appears to be in order.
Be damned. I'm almost disappointed. I gave you every opportunity. But now this actually makes things better and a little more convenient. You're going to have to live through this, Glinda.
She's made phone calls to her family. She's made phone calls to Jan. She's made phone calls to the usual suspects, the people who handle the distribution of your items and all of the business people you regularly deal with, but there is nothing that stands out as unusual, and you're suddenly struck with the realization that whatever you thought, Glenda is loyal to a fault. At least she seems to be.
Perhaps I am getting paranoid. Well, this is inconvenient. I'm going to have to find another Patsy. Wisteria is quite grumpy for the next night or two and doesn't say why. That's all.
We move on to the next member of the coterie, Barry. Barry, the new sheriff of the Buckley Anarchs. With Alexander Pierce's once iconic hatchet in your possession, I'll ask one question first. Do you wear it all the time, as he did? Is it a constant accessory? Or is it a trophy that you keep in your haven in the backseat of your car to remind you of what came to pass and nothing more?
I think I've probably got a long coat on now, so I can holster the axe underneath it.
So you've become more like Alexander Pierce than you originally would have thought you'd become. But that's fine, because you're the sheriff, and why not look the part? Nobody gave Alexander Pierce lip. Nobody except you, Barry. So if anyone is worthy of taking up his mantle, it is you. How have you been spending your nights over the last month?
I think just doing everything I can, just sheriff duties, following up on missing people, being trying to be as much of an advisor to the Baron as possible, and get into basically just get into the war room and get to work.
Yeah, sheriff duty. 80% of the time, sheriff duty consists of standing there in the corner of the Baron's bar, looking imposing, occasionally giving a sidelong glare at a particular anarch who seems to be getting particularly uppity. But the other 20% is the interesting stuff, the stuff that nobody else hears about, the stuff that the Baron confides in you only. I won't lie to you, mate, he says, as he ushers you into the back room behind the bar. As soon as you're away from the hustle and bustle of the bar proper, he leans in, his voice dropping to a whisper, and he says, "Whatever you guys did last month, shit's happening. People are making moves, and everyone else is content to believe that things are continuing on as normal, but you've been around longer than I have. You notice things are happening, wheels are starting to turn, and I need to trust someone to get it in hand. I need to trust you, Barry." And so he assigns you the task of looking into the disappearances. Everyone's heard a little bit of it. Someone who hasn't been seen for a couple weeks, a sire who hasn't heard from their fledgling child for a few nights, but when the Baron takes you into that little room and shows you the board he has set up on the wall, Barry, you see at least 20 faces staring back at you. Bright red cords linking them together, places on a map of Buckley circled, marked with X's, pointing out their havens, last known locations, and the testimonies of those who last saw them. And you go into cop mode, Barry. Go ahead and make me an intelligence investigation check.
Ooh. We got a crit here. Fun. 6 altogether.
6 altogether. I'll ask you another question, Barry. What does police work look like for you? It's been a long time since you've had the jurisdiction you needed. How do you do this? By the book, ask questions, press only when needed, or do you embrace your new mantle as the Kindred Sheriff and apply force when necessary?
I think there was a lot of procedure that Barry was probably disgruntled with in his time in the Force, but I think also he understands that some of it is there for a reason in terms of effectiveness. And so I think showing up to a scene, it's very much standard, like just collecting as much evidence as possible, making sure no one's there, and then once everything's collected, talking to witnesses and only coming to the conclusion once everything's been gathered, and start drawing the lines that way. But if he needs to be a bit more subtle or a bit more brash, then he might not have been allowed to in the Force. He'll just do what's necessary.
He has the license, and that license is called the Beast. But, Barry, you might not need to. You have 2 dots of Anarch status, so go ahead and roll 2 dice for me.
Oh, sure. One success.
1 success. It turns out, Barry, that you don't need to go off the book. Having that reputation, being the one who took down Alexander fucking Pierce, is all that you need. It doesn't matter whether it's a fledgling with only a single year of unlife under their belt, or some dried up old gangrel anarch who's been in the thick of it for the last half century. When Barry asks questions, people answer, because people know that Barry has the ear of the Baron, and they know what he's capable of. And so your investigations reveal to you, Barry, the most bizarre thing. These disappearances. The disappearances are not what you would have expected to see, given the Second Inquisition and the Cam being out for blood. You would expect to see anarchs with connections disappearing. You would expect to see anarchs who have useful assets or can be leveraged in some way being the first ones to drop off from the radar, possible defectors or people who've been kidnapped to be put to work. But the majority of the disappearances are vampires of no consequence at all, and the vast majority of them are perhaps only barely vampires in name only. Of the 20 or so victims that are pinned up there on the Baron's board, at least 3/4 of them are thin bloods, the Duskborn. Most intriguing, but it doesn't bring you any closer to finding a culprit. Each of their havens, when you visit it, appears to be undisturbed, no signs of a struggle, and you're forced to come to the conclusion that these vampires have disappeared, either weren't taken from their havens, or else they disappeared willingly, simply stepped up, walked into the night, and were gone. Is there anything else that Barry does during his nightly activities? Any personal goals he'd like to attend to, perhaps? Or is he content just doing the work of the sheriff for now?
Well, just quickly, does Barry know about thin blood alchemy?
How many dots in occult does Barry have?
None.
None. He is, however, a vampire of over 30 years of age, so you would have heard of thin blood alchemy. You don't know the specifics of it or exactly what it's capable of, but you would have heard, at the very least, that some thin bloods ply their alchemy as a trade for other vampires.
Would I know how well they're treated in this town?
In the Anarch part of town, they're treated okay enough. They're not really afforded the same status as you or any other of the members of the coterie, but nobody is out for their blood, and the Baron, at the very least, has forbidden the Anarchs from hassling them simply because of their blood status. In the Camarilla side of the city, you're not sure, but knowing how thin bloods are barely tolerated among the Anarchs, you can only assume that if any exist at all in the Cam part of the city, they're little more than slaves.
I think another thing would be just to... two things. One would be to chase up Evelina's burn. Obviously we can't do that right now, but when that comes up, that's a big priority for him. And then I think he wants to, with all these disappearances, if he's able to have another audience with the Baron, just to talk about more preventative measures.
He has the Baron's ear at any time, and a few nights into your investigation, you arrange another meeting with him, and you step into the bar and make your way through the crowd, and as soon as he sees you, as soon as he meets your eyes, he nods and waves his hands to the people assembled, and he says, "All right, folks, just have to handle something in the back. Continue as you were," and he leads you into that room, and you're standing once again in front of that cork board with the faces of the missing, and instantly the facade of jovial happiness drops from his face. He frowns, he hisses as he reveals his fangs. He can read your face, and he says, "Tell me how it is."
Most of them are thin bloods. Does that mean anything to you?
Thin bloods. Well, are we certain they've even been taken then? The plight of the thin bloods in this city is complicated, and although we preach as Anarchs that everyone gets a fair go, the reality of it is, unfortunately... He frowns. Could there be a possibility, at least how you see it, that some of these thin bloods have defected either to the Cam or to the Inquisition, Could it just be that they've seen the writing on the wall and decided to get the hell out of Dodge?
I don't have any strong proof to make it a definite, but that is a possibility. A strong one.
Well, you're the sheriff, he says. I gave you that title in good faith, that you could do your job and do it well, so what would you propose?
So what do we have in terms of preventative measures? How can we stop something like this from happening again?
Well, that's the thing, he says. We're anarchs, we're not Cam. As much as I am the Baron, I can't tell people what to do. And for the most part, as long as people stay out of my way, they can do what the hell they like in Buckley. It's up to them how they lock down their havens, up to them what precautions they take, but I'm sure they would listen if I said, hey, now Baron, the Baron's trusted confidant, and the sheriff, the one who took down Alexander Pierce, has some advice for you all. I'm sure if you had something to say, they would listen. So what do you think we should do?
Well, I just don't think the current running of things is going to cut it anymore, sir, with all due respect. Not when we could be fighting a war on both ends. Second Light and Camarilla.
Go ahead and roll me a wits insight check, please, Barry, and you may add your auspex to this, as I presume you have your heightened senses active whenever you're in investigation mode.
Yeah, basically, pretty much. Ooh, not great. That's a willpower.
Go ahead. And don't worry about hunger, because it's just downtime.
Sure. Yeah, that's 4 successes.
4. As your words hang in the air, you can't help but notice the Baron's lips twist into the slightest smile, as if what you've said to him is exactly what he wants to hear. But then within a fraction of a second, it's gone. His face is once again stony, neutral, a facade of worry and concern. He reaches forwards and goes to clasp a hand on your shoulder, Barry. Like father to son, or like good friends, do you let him do this?
Yeah, but I think heightened senses are going absolutely berserk.
Yeah.
For any sign of anything.
As you feel his hand clasp on your shoulder, as you feel his fingers dig into your shoulder blade, there's a sparkle in his eyes, and at this moment, the ambient light, the neon lamp on a shelf behind him seems to catch him at just the right angle. He's not smiling, nor does he look particularly happy, but in this moment, as he meets your eyes with his own, you can't help but feel that if there's anyone in this city you can trust, it's the Baron. He has your back, and you have his. And he says, well, that's just the thing, isn't it, Barry? A Baron could lay down the law, say, okay, everyone, for our own good, we need to follow this and that. Here's a list of rules you need to abide by, take them or leave them, and if you don't, then we're all going to die. But that sounds a bit like a prince, doesn't it? But in times of great need, wouldn't you say that when the Anarch cause itself is under threat, then perhaps certain values that aren't conducive to keeping us alive and ahead of our enemies should be jettisoned, at least At least until we can get our shit together.
Precisely, sir.
And so, what then should we have the kindred of Buckley do? What, for their own safety, should they be made to submit to? I can see you there, Barry. I can see the cogs turning behind your eyes. Full detective mode. And I'm thinking, would you have the kindred of Buckley furnish their baron, perhaps with the locations of their havens, just so that the baron and his loyal sheriff can keep a watchful eye over them, make sure everyone is safe?
Oh boy. Okay. How are we gonna play this one out, eh?
They're under attack! Kindred are going missing, not just any kindred, but the most vulnerable among us, and what are anarchs if not a place for every kindred from every walk of life to come together and feel safe and have the means and the safety to live as they wish without having to worry about some prince crushing them under thumb, nor mortals burning them alive while they slumber?
Perhaps so we may be going a bit too hard, too fast.
Then what
It
would
is as
be...
you,
Go ahead.
well, it's as you say. It is every anarch's right to live in freedom and to live in security, secrecy if they wish, but also safety. And
Even
that's
when
what we can give them.
we can give them safety, and let it be known to all that this is not a baron trying to slip into the shoes of a prince. This is only temporary. This is only to ensure that everybody is safe, to ensure the sanctity of Buckley, and nothing more. And your predecessor would agree, I think. But for different reasons. You, I think, your heart is in the right place. He winks. Come. Let us tell the others, then. Let us, as they say, lay down the law, much as it pains me to have to do it at all.
I think you're right about one thing. I think I am very different from my predecessor. I don't think I'm a beast that you can point in any direction that you wish.
And I would never imagine that you were, he says. Your predecessor would not care for what happened to a gaggle of thin bloods. Your predecessor would care only that I point him to someone and say, kill in the name of the anarchs. But you care not just about taking vengeance. You care about keeping us all safe.
I also, sir, have experience. And as a policeman, one of my experiences is crowd control. And if we go with a measure like this straight away, then things are going to get a lot more out of hand a lot quickly. It's not going to be good for us. So the first measure, sir, that I wish to introduce is to give myself a task force.
Task force? Well, Camarilla sheriffs have their hounds. I don't see why you should be any different. And Let me guess. He says, you wish for your coterie to be your task force?
Read my mind, sir.
So it shall be.
I wish to deputize my coterie.
So it shall be, he says. They're answerable to you and you alone. But of course you understand that means you take responsibility for them. If any of them turn out to be enemies to the Anarch cause, if any of them turn out to be not in agreement with what must be done by you and I for the good of the Anarchs, then I expect you to take it in hand.
I trust them, sir. But if they prove to be so, they will be dealt with swiftly.
Baron Wild at this smiles. He lets you see him smile. His rows of pearly white, immaculate teeth, his fangs with not a single drop of blood on them, perfectly clean, almost sparkling in the light. And he says, I knew I was making a good choice, Barry. Do me proud, and keep me informed, first and foremost.
Of course, sir.
Later that night, Barry, a new sense of purpose given to you when you retire to your haven, when you slide into the back seat of your car as the grey light of dawn floods the streets. You find Fern there waiting for you, and as you lay your head down in his lap, he looks into your eyes, pride on his face. And he says, look at you, babe, moving up in the world. Getting to places that Vic Pole would never have let you reach.
It'll be soon, Fern. Soon I'll have them drag him out.
He strokes your
Oh my
hair.
God.
He strokes your hair and he says, I know. I trust you. I always have. And finally, let's move to Gil. Gil. It's been a month.
It's been a month.
Both in-game and out of game. What have you been up to?
I think Gil has been oddly keeping his head down. He's been working on keeping his little transport group going. And kind of preparing himself for war.
Gathering little stockpiles of resources here and there that we're in places that he can easily access them, priming his network of contacts in the circulatory system to be ready when he needs to pull some favors, perhaps.
That's it.
And then, of course, there's Abby. She's been working with Wisteria, and you've willingly allowed Wisteria to make use of her, but the Knights, Gil. Abby corners you. She corners you one night when you've returned to your haven after a long meeting with several of the couriers that work for you. You've just described what you're doing to them, your plans, what you anticipate, and you've sent them out with orders for what to collect and where to stash it. And when you return to your haven, you want nothing more than to just relax, to get ready to hunt and lose yourself in the pursuit, indulge your beast, and just smash some fucking poor schmuck against a wall and take his blood. But tonight, Abby's there, and as you step into your haven, she's standing in the doorway of the bedroom, her arms folded, her lips thin. And she says, I barely even see you anymore, Gil.
Gil give her the eye. And I'm a busy man. I gotta make sure shit's going well for us. What do
Been
you
busy.
want anyway?
I've been busy too, she says. I've been working with that wisteria, spending hours of the day filling out bank statements and going from weird shop to other weird shops, and I thought at the very least when you said, babe, do this as a favor for me, that we'd have a chance to just have a night to ourselves. Every time I see you, you're in and out. You've always got someone to meet, always got somewhere to go, and it feels like I just can't talk to you anymore. Everything over the last month, and even before that, it's always something.
What do you want to talk to me about? What do you got? Come on. Talk now. Let's go. Come on. What do you got for me?
Her arms still folded. She rolls her eyes, frowns, shakes her head, and she says, I just want to sit down like a couple does. I want to know how your day was. I want to know what's going on in your life. I want you to ask me how my day was. I want to just talk.
My night's gone busy, babe. Like that's how it is. I'm fucking in and out of meetings and doing shit. That's why I don't have time to spend sitting around talking shit with you. Like, I've got stuff to do. Like, you've got stuff to do. We've got to keep this thing going, because if we stop, then, like, shit goes sideways. Okay? I've got shit to do. You've got shit to do. I'm a busy man. That's end of story, really. Like, what more do you want?
Go ahead and make me a manipulation or charisma plus subterfuge or leadership roll for me.
Oh, that's going to be manipulation subterfuge. Has to be.
Yeah, definitely.
That's only 3 successes.
3 successes. I'll roll for her, but I won't tell you what she got. Still frowning, she unfolds her arms. She takes a step forwards and reaches out a hand to stroke your shoulder. And then as you peer down into her face, you see streaks from her eyes down her cheek. And she says, I just thought, you said we would be together forever. You said that everything you did in your world was so that we could be together. So that I never had to worry. So that I never had to be part of it. And yet, here we are. Some nights you're not even here. Other nights you're in and out. You don't even talk to me. And what am I doing all day? Helping another fucking vampire do whatever the fuck she wants to do in your world.
Oh yeah. What you like? Brush her off. And just what did you think forever means? It means sometimes you have to sacrifice a bit of time. Sometimes I need you to do stuff for me because you can go out during the day where I can't, Mysteria can't, fucking Barry can't. Like, we need you to do these things so that it helps us, so that we get ahead, so that we can spend together forever. Otherwise, what's the point, hey? If you don't want to do it, it's fine. But then what do I need you for, really? Like,
Oh yeah. Her lip trembles and she says, I I do these things for you, Gil, because I love you, because I can't imagine my life without you, but sometimes it feels like all I'm here for is to run your errands, and sometimes I feel that if it weren't for the blood, if it weren't for what you give me every month, maybe one day I would just wake up and realize that I'm being taken for granted. I just want you to... At this, you feel her finger stroke your arm, run down your arm, and you feel her moving closer. You feel her other arm wrapping around your waist as she goes to pull you close in an embrace. And do you let her?
Oh no, I think Gil's in a mood. He like shoves her off, and he'll be like turn to confront her and like finger in her face. Do you remember where you were when I found you? Do you remember what was going on in your life when I found you? I picked you up from nothing. Remember? You were in the gutter, fucking doing drugs. You were a junkie, and now look at where you are. Look at what you are doing now. This is so much better. And all we need to do is sacrifice a little bit of forever, a little bit of eternity, a little bit of infinity, which is fucking nothing, just to get things on track. And we do these things because then we can be together forever. But if you don't want it, then leave. That's fine. If you think I'm taking you for granted, leave. Maybe you're taking my shit for granted. Maybe that's how it's working, you know? Maybe you're not giving what I think you should be. Maybe you're not holding up your end of the goddamn deal, are you?
She squirms on the floor and wails something you can't hear through the sobbing and screaming, and then as you turn to step away, she crawls forwards, wraps her hands around your ankle, and she looks up at you and she says, I'm still just a junkie. I'm a junkie for you. I just want you to tell me. I want you to show me that you love me. Please, for the love of God.
Look, for fuck's sake. Look, when I can, I will set up a night just for us. I'll tell Mysterio, tell Barry, like, I'll tell fucking everyone, you know? Tonight, no, just me and her, me and you. Let's, okay? When I can, I don't know when. Couple of weeks, like, give me a month. Just shit's got to go right for a little bit, and then we'll sort it out. Just come on, man. Like, don't fucking do this to me. Come on.
Sobs, and then again, still clutching your foot. And then, suddenly silent, she swallows. And without warning, she rises to her feet. Letting go of your ankle, she grabs your wrist, grabs it and pulls your arm towards her, peering down at the withered blood vessel under your skin. And she says, This is all we've become. And then she reaches into her handbag. She pulls out a little silver pin, and as you feel the cold metal on your skin, you realize she's about to pierce your wrist, cause the blood to flow. Do you let her?
He'll sigh and then, like, take his arm back and bite into his wrist to pierce it for her.
The blood flows. Go ahead.
Is this what you want? Will this make you happy tonight?
Wordlessly, she takes your wrist in her hands, lifts it to her mouth, and licks the blood from the wound. It's like all the color that was missing, everything that had been drained from her, all of the resolve, everything that had been shoved away and replaced by sadness and despair suddenly floods back into her cheeks. She moans in ecstasy, and then she thrusts your wrist away. She looks into your eyes and she says, "I love you, Gil. But sometimes it doesn't feel like it."
He'll lick the wounds in his wrist closed and... Look, I'm trying my hardest here, okay? Just give me a couple of weeks and we'll do something, just me and you. Whole night. Sunset to sun up, just me and you. Go out in the town or something.
Yeah, she says. I know. Well, best of luck with whatever it is you need to do. And then she turns and struts away into the bedroom, pulling the door behind her shut with such force that the door frame rattles and a hairline crack spreads.
Gil will, like, mock tearing his hair out as she's walking off and slams the door. Fucking swear to God, tits or wheels fucking cost you everything. Jesus fucking Christ.
And so, we move on to the here and now. Tonight, your blood once more begins to stir in your fetid veins, rousing your decrepit, dead bodies. The beast stirs once more. Go ahead, everyone. Make a rouse check for me as you awaken. And no worries, Cody. We got the Barry stuff done, so it's okay. Wisteria, waking up hungry. And how about you, Gil?
Yep, waking up hungry.
Waking up hungry. Each of you at hunger 2 to start this session. I'm rolling for Gil, and I'm rolling for Barry and for Robert as well. You haven't seen much of Robert over the last month. The last thing you heard is that he was working with Julian on tracking down his sire, and you suspect he's been embracing the Noz part of himself rather than the ant part of himself. You imagine he'll pop up when he's found something. But tonight it's your rodeo. We open on Barry, hunched over the wheel of his car, turns the key in the ignition, the engine roars to life, and he sighs as he prepares to go about his nightly task, yet more investigating, and hopefully tonight he'll find what he's looking for, when suddenly he hears the mobile phone in the glove compartment ring, the monophonic beeps filling the cockpit. Pops it open, reaches for the phone, and then a loud beep rings out as he says, "Who is it?" And Wisteria, you're in your shop, taking one last look over the inventory that Glenda has brought in. You're about to get to work on your schemes for the night. You're about to log on to your various bank accounts and do what you need to do to keep Black from clawing them away. You're not expecting to hear from the coterie tonight, which is why it's a big surprise when you feel your phone vibrate in your pants pocket. Fish it out and see Barry's face blinking on the screen.
It's been some time. So I'm assuming something's going wrong, she says to Barry as she answers the phone.
Not gone wrong, especially, he says. But I've got something for us. And the coterie's the only one I can trust to help me get it done. You might remember a few months back, says Barry, that priest, St. Estler, back when we did that whole thing with Mickey Mayhew and his apartment block and then the 2 gangrel.
The weasel, right.
The weasel, right. And the only reason we let him go is because he said that he'd look into my sire, look into Bluey, and when he found something, he would get back to me.
And now he has.
Now he has. Only he doesn't want to tell me what the fuck he's dug up. Called me on the phone. He says, hey, I've got something, but the Lord helps those who help themselves. So we got to go meet him. He's holding out in some decrepit old supermarket up in the arse end of Lakeside, up near Barnong wetlands. And he said, if we're going to do it, it needs to be tonight. Now, I don't know if this is about my sire, or if it's about the cam in general, but I'm not going to let this opportunity go to waste. We need to meet with him, we need to find out what he knows. And whether it's about my sire or not, as sheriff, it's my duty to see it through to the end. Understand?
You do. You do understand how much this seems like a trap, though. Which is why you've called us, I expect.
Got it in one. He says, granted, not much has been going on over the last month, but somewhere out there in the shadows, someone's gearing up to make a move, and I'm not about to meet the guy on my own. Plus, I've had a talk with the Baron, and I've convinced him that as the sheriff, I might need deputies, if you catch my drift. And you in particular, Wisteria, I think you'd get a big kick out of having an actual title behind your actions.
It's less about the title, more about mixing it up. I've had my nose buried in ledges and doing shenanigans on levels that honestly are quite boring. Getting out into the field would just be the welcome break. Yes, you've got me for the night.
Well, then we'll meet at the location, and if this goes well, then I've found some deputies I can rely on. If not, well, we've been through a lot together, and I'm sure we'll find a way to get through the shit.
One way or the other.
Can't find Robert or Evelina. I imagine you'll catch up with them for me. I'll be waiting for you. Then there's a beep, and the line is dead.
We'll go in and have Jan arrange the rental car, actually.
Yes, ma'am, he says, as he steps out of the room. I'll see to the limousine, unless you'd like something more inconspicuous.
Inconspicuous, I think, is the word of the day, but after you're done, take the limousine out and take it driving randomly around town anyway. May as well make them think I'm doing something else.
I'll have the sedan prepared for your use, then.
Good enough. That's right, we did buy one, didn't we? Rentals were getting tiresome.
And so you make the requisite calls. The call to Gil and the call to Evelina. Can't get a hold of Robert, You let it ring through until finally the line falls dead and you have nothing but the dial tone beeping back at you. And you hope you don't need him tonight. And then you hope that he's okay. You're sure you'll see him soon enough.
I
Then,
do hope he's alright. The man is slowly turning into bugs and he's still somehow one of the more decent of us.
and then you step out onto the street where the black sedan waits, tinted windows with Jan behind the wheel. He beeps the horn. Boop, boop.
In we go.
Clam.
I'll drive myself from here. You take the limousine and go have a random drive.
Of course, man, he says. He stands, gestures towards the driver's seat, and then takes a bow and steps away back into the shop to prepare for the nightly drive. You slide behind the wheel, turn the engine on, and soon the sedan is gliding through the streets of Buckley, brand new, recently serviced. Its engine is almost silent. The purr under the hood reminds you of your beast when you're on the prowl. You pick up...
Too long.
Been too long. But finally something's happening. Gil!
Stop a bite on the way.
Oh, you're gonna hunt first?
At the tenement.
At the tenement? Tap into your herd? Well, I will ask then. Gil, will you be tapping into your 1-dot herd to reduce your hunger to 1?
That could be a very good idea.
So in that case, as you're heading down to Gil's Haven to pick him up, Wisteria, you decide you'll both hit the tenement block on the way. Gil, you've just gotten in from yet another night of meetings and checking out the latest supply cache you've had hidden away. And thank the gods, Abby is not waiting to chew your ear this time, but you've barely gotten through the door of your flat when suddenly you hear boop boop. And you look over your shoulder and see Wisteria there, waving at you from behind the wheel of her black sedan.
Gil nod and just lock everything back up and head on over to Wisteria.
Hello there. Do you mind if we stop for a bite on the way? I'm feeling rather peckish.
Fuck, I could use a bite. Yeah, right.
Burn a cord then.
Late
Off we
night
go.
vampire Macca's run. And so the sedan glides away once again. A few minutes later, it pulls up in front of what was once Mickey's apartment tenement, now technically Lynette's. But in this moment, tonight, it is yours, and yields its bounty only to you. The engine of the sedan turns off, and Wisteria and Gil nod to each other as they split off, each heading their own way, looking for a victim. Gil, are you in the mood for anything in particular tonight?
I think Gil has learned a little bit in the last month about blood and resonance. So I think he's kind of hunting for, is it choleric?
Let me
The
see. I
angry one.
think it's choleric. Let me see. I'm just going to have to look that up. I did not have that page open. You are looking for, assuming you want to boost your celerity and potence, indeed, choleric, the humor of passion and anger, but also one of jealousy and violence.
That's the one. Well, maybe we should speak from Abby.
Well, tonight is one of the few nights where she wasn't waiting to chew your ear off, and so you figure it'd probably be easier to feed here than try to locate her. She's probably doing something for Wisteria anyway, but But an apartment block like this, a lot of people living in there, and a lot of them are at the lowest points of their lives. You're sure you can find what you're looking for? So you're going to be searching for someone with a choleric resonance. This is your herd, but it is only a one-dot herd. One-dot herds do not harbor a resonance automatically, so you will need to roll to locate someone with the right resonance. You're not rolling to locate someone to feed from. That's guaranteed, but to find someone with the right blood, well, you're going to have to put a bit more effort in than just stepping into the tenement, knocking on the door of a flat, and feeding on whoever's from the other side. So go ahead for me and make your feeding roll. How'd you go?
That's 4 successes.
4 successes. As soon as you leave Wisteria, you head for the fire escape around the side, and it's locked, but that's no problem for you as you clench your fist and smash the padlock off the door. It creaks open, and you begin prowling the ground floor of the tenement. Somewhere behind these paper-thin walls, you hear the sound of shouting voices. For the last fucking time! I'll go to the pub as many fucking times as I like. I don't have to let you know where I am, and then I come home and you're chatting it up with the bloke from next fucking door. You follow the voices, knowing they'll lead you to what you want. Flashes of your own relationship going through your mind. Abby's face crying, shouting back at you, you shouting back at her.
You are what you eat.
You are what you eat. You come to the doorway of flat number 9, and just as you hear the sound of a woman bursting into tears, the door is flung open, and a man wearing a orange high-vis vest stained with white paint and battered, torn, faded jeans steps out. He takes one look at you and says, "Mind your own fucking business," and then slams the door shut behind him. He reaches into his pocket, fishes out a pack of cigarettes, and already has one in his mouth as he turns and begins making his way to the little smoking area at the end of the hallway.
Gil will follow after him, and I think it'd be easy for Gil just to go for this guy. He's gone, yeah, man, I'm feeling this guy. I 100% feel you, buddy. Loud and clear.
And so you follow him. Follow him just till he's out of earshot of anyone who might be listening from the flats. He steps out into a little atrium and reaches for his pocket to fish out the lighter. And then he sees you standing there. He spits at his feet. You got a fucking problem, mate. Told you to mind your own business.
Settle down, man. I'm kindred goddamn spirit, eh? Fucking women.
Women. Yeah. You just want to drink with your mates after work. You've been working all fucking day. And there she is, chatting it up with the fuckhead from next door. Oh, no, don't worry, mate. Don't worry, honey. She says, don't worry. There's nothing going on, nothing between us. I was just asking him about his day, but why the fuck would she be wearing that miniskirt, huh?
Too fucking right. Hey, bum a cigarette off you?
Oh, yeah, he says, and he kneels over, fishes the packet out, and starts to bang one out.
As he's kneeling, Gil will just go for him.
Take him, roars the beast. It roars with delight as you lurch forwards and fist slams into his stomach. He gasps in pain, dropping the pack of cigarettes, and before he has a chance to do anything else, you grab him, slam him against the wall, slamming his head into the stone with such force that you hear a loud crack, and he's immediately knocked out cold. And then feeling his warm, throbbing heartbeat in your arms, you bare your fangs and sink them into his neck. The blood that flows through your veins tastes vaguely like cheap beer. Not enough to get anything more than a buzz going, but it's definitely there. What you taste more is the anger, the hatred, the jealousy. Flashes of the man's memories run through your mind. A cowering woman, bruises on her arms, her legs, a black eye staring back into your own. And then... do you continue feeding? Do you take just what you need? Or do you exhaust this vessel?
Nah, take what George takes what he needs. And he leaves it at that. But as he's walking off, he'll knock on the door of the apartment this guy came from, and just point back down to him when the girl answers and say, I think the old man's passed out.
You can see the black eye under layers and layers of makeup. She peers over your shoulder and sees him crumpled in the atrium. She sighs, and then she looks up at you and she simply says, "Oh, thank you. I'll see to him."
Throw a blanket on him, leave the cunt outside. You have a good night, eh?
You too, she says in a trembling voice. And then you're gone. Fed. The beast purring in content, ready for the night. Wisteria, are you looking for anything in particular?
She's going back to that couple she found, and she's going to follow up on them. Their dreams are the only way she can have dreams, and these two are vivid, and she's following their soap opera. She actually has a plan. She feeds on a little of both, tasting them. Is it continuing the way it is, with the woman getting more miserable and the man continuing to be content and happy?
Take a little bit from both, and they wiggle and sigh in their fitful sleep. Snatches of dreams and memory play before your mind's eye. Screaming. Red bills that they have no means of paying. Notifications of the power being shut down. Screaming and screaming about things they should have done, could have done when they had the chance, and now nothing. Their lives wasting away, stuck in this rut from which they will never recover, no longer standing the sight of each other, but not being able to live without each other as well.
And that decides Wisteria. The woman seems to have the rougher time of it, so Wisteria's by now gotten her bank details going through her pocketbook while she was asleep. She puts a note into Glenda to have the woman get an inheritance from a relative that she didn't know, part of the money that she's juggling around. Enough for her to leave this place, of course. Will she take the man with her?
Glenda doesn't question. She simply sends back the requisite, "Yes, ma'am," right away. And as you lick the holes shut and depart into the night, you wonder what will happen when the couple awakens in the morning and discovers that their lives have been irreversibly changed.
Well, thanks, Wisteria. If she's smart, she won't even tell them.
She'll check back on them next time she needs to feed. You meet once more with Gil out the front of the tenement, seeing that that colours once again in his skin. He's flushed with the blood he's just taken. You meet each other's eyes, nod, and climb back into the sedan, and then you are off to attend to the night's business to meet with Barry and the others. The sedan...
Do you think
Go ahead.
Do you think he'd get upset if I called him Barry the Hatchet?
What do you think, Gil?
Nah, Garrett.
Alright. Now he probably wouldn't. He'd just take it in stride. He's much too serious. Much too serious.
So once again, the sedan ferries you back across the Anarch part of Buckley. And about an hour later, just as the numbers on the neon dashboard tick over to 11 p.m., you arrive at the northernmost part of Lakeside. Lakeside is generally a well-to-do suburb, probably the nicer suburb in the Anarch part of the town. It's very old, very historical, but the northern part, the part on the northern side of the main freeway, is like the rest of Anarch Buckley, decaying, dead, useless, a remnant of a bygone era. As the sedan turns into the street, you notice that the street ahead is an eerie wasteland, devoid of sound and movement save for plastic bags and other debris rustling in the wind. Every window is either broken or shuttered, all below faded signs with missing letters. Not even the homeless seem to consider this street worthwhile. And there, at the very end of it, the location of Barry's contact. You can see Barry's car parked in a little alleyway across the road from the abandoned storefront. Lights off. You don't know if Barry's sitting there waiting behind the wheel, but he's definitely somewhere close. Where do you park the sedan, Wisteria? Right in front of the storefront?
No, it'll be at the end of the block.
End of the block. And then you and Gil walk the rest of the way, gathering in front of the abandoned store. The business's original name and purpose have been lost. The erasure committed by means of plastic boards, spray paint, and dust. The windows cloud with the smudgy gloam of neglect, obscuring the interior. Cracks spider out along the glass in a few places, like coronas of splintered lightning. You hear the sound of footfalls on the asphalt. You both whirl around and see Barry stepping out of the mouth of the alleyway towards you, his face stony and neutral, all business. And beside him stands Avelina, dressed in her usual mixture of Wednesday Addams and mall goth from the 1990s. Her bat, now with wings of unusually long size curled around its body, perched in its usual spot on her shoulder. "Kept us waiting," says Barry.
Good to see you, Barry. Or should I say Barry the Hatchet? Interesting. Seems to fit. We had to catch a bite on the way down. Well, Robert's absent. Shall I go scout things out for us?
Ignoring your nickname, Barry nods. He says, I've scouted the place out a bit before you arrived. Doesn't seem to be anyone else here. No cars, not even any homeless people, but Estela says he's waiting inside, or he said he was. Take a look in there. I don't see any signs of life."
Yes, well, he is a Malkavian. He could be standing in a coordinated. Definitely wait here. I'll have a look.
Wisteria, you're gonna scout. How will you go about doing it?
Well, we'll do the usual go invisible thing and not get hungrier for it.
Not get hungrier.
Then we're going to go ahead and check the doors. Are any of them locked?
You're using unseen passage, correct?
Correct.
So you are invisible. However, I will still require you to roll me a Dex stealth check, please.
Absolutely. If you jiggle a handle lightly, it can still make noise. Dex and stealth. Technically, this is casing for a break-in. Does that apply?
Yeah, I'd say it does.
Alright. So, 7 dice, one of which is bloody. See how this goes. 2, 3, 4 successes.
As you fade away, the bat chirps, and Avelina looks up into the sky and she says, "If it interests you, Wisteria, I sent Lunala out for a little fly before you arrived, and there is a fire escape." She points towards the mouth of a little alleyway running along the side of the abandoned store.
You're a darling, and I'll definitely be taking that one first. Is it locked?
You creep down the mouth of the alleyway, and here's the interesting thing. You see the rust-flecked metal door around the back. You see the padlock attached to it and the long chain that's running through the loop under the door handle. But the padlock has been opened, and the chain dangles uselessly from the loop to the concrete, on the concrete below. Door itself is still shut, though.
Well, we'll quietly ease it open.
Turn the handle. It creaks ever so slightly, but not enough to be heard by anyone nearby. The door is unlocked. In fact, as you go to open the door, you realize that it's not just unlocked. It's been broken into. The catch is not even attached anymore. When you turning the doorknob is completely superfluous, as all you have to do is grab the door and pull it, and it slowly creaks open an inch, revealing that the latch on the other side has been brutalized by some blunt force object.
We'll go ahead and retrace the steps of brutality through this place.
Meanwhile, Gil, are you going to wait for Wisteria to come back? Or are you doing something of your own while she's creeping around?
Gil just guard the front, I guess. He's not going to go and mess up Wisteria's investigation. That's a horrible idea.
So, Gil, walk out into the mouth of the alleyway, fold your arms, lean against the brick wall, and just keep an eye out for Wisteria. Behind you, Barry and Avelina chat in whispered voices, discussing what's going to happen should Wisteria find signs of life inside. And Gil, I'd like you to make me a wits awareness check, please.
That's a nice 2 successes.
2 successes. Behind you, you hear Lunala the bat screech and chitter. Avelina gasps and she points, and you look over it towards the store, and had you not been standing guard at that moment, you would have missed it. For only a fraction of a second, a humanoid silhouette framed against the darkness, walking across the cracked front window, pausing for just a moment to stare out onto the street before disappearing back into shadow. Whoever they are, they're stocky, muscly, muscular build. They're either wearing a lot of clothing, otherwise they're incredibly tall. And you think back to all those months ago, to Simon Estler, the priest, and you don't think you remember him being built that way.
Huh. Gil, think for a moment, and then start heading on over there. Yeah.
Head straight towards the store. You've seen someone and you're gonna go and check it out.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Wisteria, you creep through the back door into some sort of manager's office. You can tell it served that purpose at one point in time from the single computer monitor, CRT, big square brick thing sitting on one of the desks, but there's no keyboard or hard drive. The rest of the room is completely emptied of furnishings. Beyond that, there's a small hallway that leads out to the store proper, a mass of empty shelves and displays, and Wisteria, you're pretty sure you see someone moving around out there in the pitch black darkness. They seem to be creeping between the rows of shelves. Not moving casually, but moving with purpose, slowly, carefully, pausing every few seconds to look from left to right. And like Gil, you see that the build of this person, whoever they are, doesn't seem to match what you remember of the priest.
Wisteria will flick her phone out and text to the others, still invisible. At least one goon inside, being sneaky. This is definitely a trap. Going to continue looking for Simon.
Beep. A few seconds
Silently.
later, a text comes back from Barry, and it says, "Give the word, and we'll take them out."
Gonna finish scouting first. And she does.
Alright, make me another Dex stealth roll, or I'll also accept composure plus stealth.
We'll go dexterity. Can't really call this a break-in. But we will boost dexterity and get a little hungrier. Oh, that's okay.
How do we go?
I think professional pride is going to say she's going to willpower that roll.
Probably a good idea.
2 successes.
2 successes. I'm going to roll something else. Won't tell you what we got. All I'll say is that as you begin to creep out into the store proper, Wisteria, you realize it is so incredibly dark. You wonder how that person who's scouting around is able to see at all. The only light is the ambient light from the street light that's filtering in through the front window. And as you step out into the store proper, you feel your heart sink as your foot crunches on something. You look down and see that the floor space of the shop seems to be covered in tiny shards of glass. As if there were a sheet of glass suspended above the store that suddenly broke, or, more likely in your estimation, somebody has scattered these around to make it impossible for someone to creep up on them. You see the person ahead of you immediately jerk upright as they hear the crunch of the glass, and they whirl around to face the direction that you're coming from. The beam of a flashlight passes through thin air where you're standing, and you see, illuminated by it, a man with aged, leathery skin, about 6.5 feet tall with very broad shoulders. He clutches in his left hand a long metal pointed stake. In his right hand, the flashlight sweeps, switching every few seconds from normal light to purple, ultraviolet, trying to find something. You hear him whisper into the darkness, "Hey, heard something." And then another voice calls out from somewhere at the back of the store, "Yeah, could be him. Keep looking. Over there, the back." And Gil, standing out the front, it's at this point that you see the person inside the store flick on their flashlight. You see the beam, clear as day, sweeping through the tiny store, obviously searching for someone. "Exterior blown her cover already," says Barry. "Or are they looking for the priest?"
I think they're looking for the priest. Should I go him?
Barry slams a fist into his palm, and then he looks at Evelina, meets her eyes, and she looks at her bat and nods. And then she says to you, "Gil, I'm ready when you are."
Gil will charge the gate.
Gil will charge. Wisteria, what
Well,
are you doing back in the store?
let's see. Do
Importantly-
we have an...
Importantly,
Hang on.
Gil will activate prowess.
Ah,
Charge
see
the
if
So
he
gate.
the beam of the flashlight, is there any furniture in this place? This room? A desk? A counter?
It's mostly empty, but you do happen to be lucky enough, Wisteria, that you're on the side of the store that's closest to the sales counter. There's even an old cash register flecked with rust still sitting on it. And Gil
Did
does
the
not
ki-
get hungrier. Lovely.
Did the glass... Did it glit the glass on... Did any glass on the counter glitter when the beam swept across it? Or was
I'd
it
say-
spared? Is it mainly the floor?
How many dots of awareness do you have?
I believe I have 3.
That's more than enough. The countertop is free of glass. It seems to
Alright.
be on the floor only. Not even the shelves have it.
Alright. Then Wisteria will reach out, extend to full, grab the counter, and pretty much slowly do a handstand and put herself up on it.
Go ahead, make me a composure plus dex check.
Oh. That thing I boosted a second ago works for me. Now watch it all be ones.
That's how it goes sometimes, unfortunately.
Let's see how it goes. We'll do another willpower. He has no idea the cavalry is on the way. Only 3 successes.
Only 3 successes. 3 successes meets 3 successes. You pull yourself up onto the counter, and the man...
Probably
The
made
man-
another crunch on the glass on the floor, though.
Yeah, you feel you hear the crunch of glass as you haul yourself up onto the counter, and the man once more pauses, points the flashlight in your direction, and it shines straight through you, illuminating a faded advertisement for a lounge suite on the wall behind you. "Something's over there," he whispers. He motions to the other man. Hey, I think he's behind the counter. You go from that side, I'll go from that side. We'll grab him, drag him out here." The other man nods and reaches into the folds of his cloak, withdrawing an identical, long, sharp, spiked stake. Gil, you're charging ahead. You're vaguely aware of Avelina and Barry bringing up the rear behind you. You can hear the flapping of the bat's wings. Ahead of you is the front door of the store. A double wooden door that seems to be barred with a long metal pole wedged through the handles, and beside it, the shop front window crisscrossed with hairline cracks. Are you going to try the door, or are you going to barrel straight through the window?
I think he's going to go straight through the window.
Straight through the window. There is a man with his back turned to you on the other side, the one flashing his light around, and you pick him as your target. You grit your teeth and you charge forwards, and I'd like you to go ahead and make me a strength brawl check, and of course you may add your potence as you've activated prowess.
That's a critical success of 7.
7, very nice. Critical success. Not a bestial critical, I hope?
No, not at all.
It's a
But,
normal.
I will say that I do have lethal body. If this is a man,
He's going to have a very bad day.
he's going to have a very, very bad night.
So, assuming Wisteria is watching from the counter, Gil, what would she
upside
see?
down. But she's seeing things upside down because she's still standing on her hands. But she sees... Is this a man?
Well, Gil, what would she see? How are you going about this?
Gil's going to get a run up and leap through the glass. And as he's coming through, just leap and punch this guy in the head. Gil's arms rippling and like red with blood as he just charges these massive fists into this guy's head.
If this is a human, she would probably see the glass explode in a spray of gore on the wall opposite.
I would say having a vampire come charging through a glass window at you and you're not expecting it certainly counts as being surprised. So I'm going to give him a penalty on his dice pool, meaning he rolls 4 successes. Wisteria, you see the man raise his flashlight and careen forwards, trying to find you. And then you see something large moving with blinding speed, surging towards the window from outside. And then there's a crash, and yet more glass rains through the storefront as Gil flings himself through the window towards the man. The man whirls around as he hears the cacophony, raises his stake to defend himself, but he is not at all ready for you as your clenched fist comes down. Your beast roars in jubilation. You feel the sound, you feel the unmistakable sensation of crumbling bone under your fist as the man's head becomes one with his neck. He gurgles and then falls to the ground in a heap at your feet.
Wisteria will come out of obfuscation, turn on her awe, whistle, and catch the eyes of the second one.
Catch the eyes of the second one.
Still while standing on her hands, looking at him upside down.
Wisteria, how many dots in dexterity do you have?
4.
Gil, as you finish pasting the guy to the floor, you become aware of the second guy now running from the back part of the store, fumbling in his coat with his stake in one hand. And as Wisteria reveals herself on the counter. He stops charging towards you, Gil. Instead, he turns, notices Wisteria, and whoosh! Wisteria, you see this man who you thought was a human suddenly move with blinding speed, blinking across the shop floor towards the counter, and the next thing you know, he's leaping through the air, stake raised in both hands, about to bring it down.
Well. But do I make eye contact?
Well,
or should I abort? Is this a case of momentum's gonna do... Yeah, momentum's gonna do the job. Time to dodge.
I will say he's using blink, so if you can dodge this blow, you might be able to get to him in time. You might be able to catch his eye, otherwise...
We'll abort to dodge. Bigger prey than
to dodge. Alright, go ahead. Dex athletics check for me, please.
Alright. Dice. Here's hoping he doesn't ruin this suit. It's Versace. Oh, the shirt. Haha! Critical. I'm going to spend another willpower to add to that. I have a feeling this guy is a badass. That'll be 7 successes.
7 successes to his 6 successes. Well done. Well done. Feeling your mouth drop open in shock, you roll to the side, dropping off the counter as the stake comes down with such force that the countertop splinters up, showering you with shards of chipboard and plastic. The man roars with rage as he rips the stake out of the countertop and begins to scramble over it to try to strike at you again.
You're definitely a bit spicier than I was anticipating. Gil, could you?
Gil, what do you do?
Charge him too.
Charge him too.
A stranger to violence. He loves violence.
He does. You see him he's currently got his back turned to you. Very bad for him. As he leaps down off the counter, raises his stake, and tries to get to Wisteria, who's edging away on the floor, and he hears the sound of your footfalls crunching on the glass, whirls around just as you're about to reach him, raises the stake to try to parry your blow, but will he succeed? Gil, go ahead and make me a strength brawl check.
That's only 4 successes, but I'm going to use a willpower to reroll. That's only 5 successes.
5 successes. 5 successes to his... 5 successes to his 7 successes. He's just a fraction of a second too fast to you. You reach him, and once again your fist comes down, and where his head was only a quarter of a second ago is now air, and your fist just rends the counter in front of you in 2. But he's already clear. He's already clear, and once he sees you make short work of the counter, he steps over the splinters and charges towards you. He doesn't
and that's
quite...
when Wisteria shouts, "Eyes!" Drops and throws the flashbang as she drops behind the counter.
Wisteria, go ahead and roll me your eyes. Oh, you're dropping the flashbang. You're not trying to go for his eyes.
No.
Yeah. All right. Wisteria and Gil, I'd like both of you to go ahead and make composure plus wits checks. I think that's what it is for flashbangs. Let me double check.
Yeah. She's shouting, "Eyes!" to Gil as she gestures with a grenade, so. 3 successes.
3 successes. And Gil?
Same.
You have just enough time to raise your hands to block out your eyes when there's a and brilliant light fills the tiny store as if a sun exploded right next to you. You hear the man scream, and he flails the stake in the air in front of him, managing to give you enough time, Gil, to step backwards, avoiding the brunt of the attack, but still feeling the sharp barb on the end cut through your shirt and through your skin, and you take 2 points of superficial damage. The man hisses, "Ah! Where is the priest? Where is the priest?"
He's got a nasty habit of inviting us to take care of his enemies, and I'm getting sick of it. Also, Gil, if you want to beat him, now's the time.
So Wisteria no longer gonna go for his eyes?
No. She's going to sit down behind the counter and let the boys work this out.
Importantly, I'm gonna make a rouse check because Gil's got a new little ability here in fortitude, in toughness.
Yeah, you can absorb that. You still take 1 point of damage, but you soak one of them. And you see...
2.
2? Ah. Well,
Yes.
then you soak all of it, because
But
I
he gets
believe...
hungrier.
He does get hungrier. And you feel the scratches on your chest just seal up before any blood begins to spill. The man in front of you, wincing from the pain of the flashbang, doesn't notice, and instead he grits his teeth and shouts, "Ah!" and charges towards you, the long spiked stake held aloft like a lance.
I'm just gonna try and get out of his way and beat him to the ground.
Alright. Make me a strength brawl check, please. And of course he gets a penalty on his because of the flashbang. He's currently disoriented.
I'll take that critical of 9. Thank you very much.
Ooh, critical
Yum,
of 9. Very, very nice. As he runs, you see his eyes flicker red with bloodlust, and then whoosh, he blinks forwards. Within a fraction of a second, he's standing directly in front of you, and you see the tip of the stake poke out, but he only gets 7 successes, even with his blink. And so you kick out with your right foot, striking him in the stomach. You feel it collide with something. You hear the sound of bone cracking, and the man is flung backwards in an arc through the air, hitting one of the shelves with a crash and landing in a heap, wincing. But not for long. He quickly reaches out for the stake and starts to scramble to his feet, but... Mysteria, Gil, would you like to do anything?
Now Wisteria will go for the eyes.
He happens to land on the other side of the pile of matchwood that used to be the countertop, and as he begins to scramble back to his feet, Wisteria, that's when you crawl forwards, throw your body onto his, pinning him to the dusty linoleum, and you look into his bloodshot eyes. He squirms and struggles, his teeth gritted. Go ahead and make your Eyes of the Serpent roll, please.
Let's see. Let's give it up for charisma plus presence, which gets doubled because feel a little hungry. Gonna risk it then, not get hungrier, to go ahead and boost charisma, because I do not want to be on top of this man, but the beast kind of, just in case things go wrong. That is a messy critical 8.
is your hunger currently at, Wisteria?
3.
3.
I
Messy
think I'm
crit of
having a
8.
sip of him while I'm looking him in the eyes, aren't I?
Would you like to spend your willpower, perchance,
No.
to negate it?
Oh, I think this could be funny.
You look into his eyes, and the struggling immediately ceases, and you have a second of lucid, rational thought. Your mind begins swimming with questions. Who are you? Where's the priest? Why are you looking for him? Who are you working for? But they're quickly drowned out by the roar of the beast. You see Gil ahead, and behind him on the ground, a man whose head has been literally crushed to pieces. And you think, why not? And your fangs come out, and before you know it, overpowering blood is surging through your body. This is not quite mortal blood, nor is it the blood of a kindred, but you can taste the beast in it. You can taste the beast, and the beast rattles in nervousness, in fear and shock and terror as it tastes its own kind.
Oh.
It squirms and somehow urges you to pushes you to keep going further, more and more and more.
No.
Make me a composure plus resolve plus a third of your humanity check. Make me a frenzy check, please.
We're not doing that now. We're not doing this now. Especially not over some dim-witted stranger I just met. 4. I don't even know his pedigree. Come on now.
More, whispers the beast, and the blood that's flowing down your throat is...
Cleverness gets rewarded, brutism does not. Settle down.
This, you realize, must have been what Robert felt. And you won't have any of that. It takes every ounce of willpower, every fiber of your being to wrench your fangs out of the man's neck and throw him down to the floor in front of you as he coughs and splutters for air.
She requires his eyes. All right.
Meets his eyes again. He coughs once more. And as he reaches for his stake, he freezes, rooted in place. Gil, I'd like you to make me a wits awareness check, please. I'll get to that in a moment. Oh, yes, so Wisteria.
Yes?
You desperately wanted to drink 2 successes. You desperately wanted to drink deeper, something in that blood, and you registered that had you kept going, you might lose yourself. So you unfortunately only managed to slake 1 point of hunger before
That's
you
fine.
pull yourself away. Meanwhile, Gil, you're standing there watching Wisteria feed on this man, ready to rip her off him if it looks like she's going to take everything he has. You're not paying attention to what's happening outside, which is why when someone steps out of the alleyway outside, cocks a rifle and takes aim, you see nothing and you hear nothing except for the crack, the gunshot that rings out through the silent night. Gil, make me a Dex Athletics check with 1 penalty dice, please.
Is that for guns? For dodging a gunshot?
Sure is. I think you have rapid reflexes, don't you?
I do.
Yeah, so forget the penalty die.
So what was that one? It was Dex.
Dex athletics to dodge.
Two successes.
2 successes. As soon as the gunshot rings out, your instincts kick in. You feel the blood surge through your body, and you feel your knees spring, preparing to leap for cover behind one of the shelves. And then before you can do it, you feel the impact. You feel the bullet slam into the back of your shoulder. Feel the skin torn as he rolls 6 successes, and you take 4 points of superficial damage.
Don't forget toughness.
Unless you'd like to rouse for your toughness.
Doesn't it stay up?
Oh, I think it does, yeah, last a scene. But actually, let me double check, because I think it was every time you use it. But
There's a fortitude power that does.
Yeah, there is.
Sorry
If
to break
that's
the flow.
that's alright, I'm just double checking. So fortitude.
Yeah, last 15.
Yeah, last for a scene, yeah. Subtract, yeah, go ahead, subtract your fortitude damage from that 4 points of superficial. You feel the bullet, you feel the tip of the bullet eat into your skin, and then the beast roars. You feel your flesh harden like stone, and the bullet is expelled outwards, clattering uselessly on the ground. You whirl around now and you see him standing there, the gunman, in the mouth of the alleyway, clutching in his hands a high-caliber rifle, 50 cal, something with enough kick to not just kill you, but turn your body into mincemeat. He raises the gun, cocks it, and prepares to fire off another round. What would you like to do, Gil? Or Wisteria?
Well, I'm a bit busy holding this guy.
Gil's got fleetness as well. If I rouse, would I be able to try and run across to him?
You don't have Blink. You do have Fleetness, though.
Blink.
And Celerity rating for non-combat dexterity test or defending. Yeah, I'll allow you to use it to get close to him, but any attack you make against him after doing that will have a penalty, because it's not Blink.
Not hungrier, but there we go.
Good blood night.
Rouse the blood.
What is it, 3 currently, so not doing too good.
The beast spits. Take his blood, spill it. Take it all.
Yeah, that's kind of the plan, is to get this guy and maybe feed, but at the moment it's just to get this guy.
You turn and leap back through the broken window, start running down the asphalt, and within a second, before you know it, you're running into the mouth of the alleyway towards him. His eyes are wide, his mouth dropped open in shock from how fast you moved, and he barely has time to line up another shot. Beads of sweat running down his face.
Yeah, Gil will go to knock him the fuck out. Well, down.
Him down. Go ahead, make me a strength brawl check. Don't forget to add your potence, because you have prowess still active.
And did you want to add a penalty?
And action, yeah, reduce your dice by 2.
That's 2 successes, but I'm going to reroll failures because there's 3 there that are staring at me.
And up to 5.
Oh, gross. Only 3.
bang! The rifle goes off and a bullet slams into your shoulder. He's too close to get a bead on your head or any of your other weak points, but it still fucking hurts as he rolls 3 successes and you take 3 points of superficial damage, minus your fortitude, of course. The man's gun trembles in his hands, and his finger tightens on the trigger as he goes to follow up with another shot. The killing shot. You wince in pain, clutching your hand to your shoulder, willing the fortitude to take care of the rest. And as he aims at you, he does not notice the shape in the air behind him, the long, leathery wings, the gleaming, hungry yellow eyes. As Lunala the bat shrieks, and the man screams, his gun clattering to the ground, clutching his hands to his ears in pain. You hear Avelina call out, "Now, Gil, now!"
He'll go for another strike.
Yeah, go ahead. Strength brawl. Don't forget your potence. And this time he gets the penalty.
That's a lovely 6 successes.
6 successes. I'll ask you one question, Gil. Does it matter to you whether this man survives the encounter?
Only in that Gil wants to drink from him, but that's about it.
Well, he rolled 1 success, so go ahead. Please describe what Gil will do to him.
Oh, then that's really easy. Gil will... Gil confronts him and strikes for his shoulder to take out his ability to hold the rifle. So Gil's fist strikes the man's shoulder and it crumples. The gun obviously clatters to the ground. And Gil just grabs him and sinks his teeth into his neck and starts drinking.
By drinking this man's blood, you will unfortunately negate the choleric resonance you're currently rocking. Are you sure you want to do that?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You pull him close to you and feel him squirm, hear him murmur something and scream in pain as your fangs go in, and what you're drinking doesn't taste like mortal blood. There's something in it, something that your beast instinctually recoils from. A single drop of blood seems to overpower you, like a teenager being knocked on their ass from their first hit of whiskey. You feel your knees weakening and buckling, and it takes every ounce of willpower you have to continue drinking. And the beast roars, "More, more, I must have more, I must have more, such power!" How much hunger are you currently at, Gil?
Currently at 3.
At 3. I'm going to need to ask you, like Wisteria, to make a frenzy check for me.
That's Composure Resolve, yeah?
Yep, Composure plus Resolve plus 1/3 of your humanity.
Now, is that with hunger as well, or...?
Nah, not on a frenzy check.
That's 2 successes.
2 successes. Oh, you so desperately want to take more. This blood is exquisite. A single drop is more enriching than an entire human vessel, and you want to take every single drop his body holds. But do you?
No, Gil only takes as much as necessary. He won't kill him by feeding.
Keep drinking. And the beast's protestations become so loud they drown out everything around you. You no longer hear the shouts of Avelina and Barry for you to stop. You no longer hear the chittering of the bat. You keep drinking and drinking until suddenly, miraculously, you wrench yourself away and let the pale-skinned, barely conscious man fall to the ground, where he winces once and falls into a dead faint. Somehow, after all of that, you only managed to slake a single point of hunger. You barely took any at all, you realise, but the aftertaste lingers and warmth seems to spread to your very fingertips. And then, Wisteria and Gil, as both of you have drunk from these men, you feel something in the back of your minds. You feel like you're being watched. A voice, incomprehensible like through static, somewhere in the recesses of your mind's eye, speaking to you, beckoning you. Do either of you give in and try to focus on it?
I think Gil does in the moment. Yeah.
This is definitely not normal, and she doesn't like her brain being invaded, so Wisteria does not.
Wisteria, I will need you to go ahead and make me a resolve plus, shall we say,
Intelligence?
resolve plus intelligence roll, yes.
Well, we're going to risk some blood and boost both. Double 10 says I don't get hungry. I could have used that on the actual roll. Down to 102. Swap that out. All right, 9 dice. Let's see how this goes. We'll stick with 4 successes.
4 successes.
That's not too bad, right?
Get out of my mind, you say through gritted teeth. And your beast roars back, its words matching yours. Get out! Get out! Get out! Suddenly, everything around you, Wisteria, is drowned out by a burst of white noise. Behind it, the sound of someone laughing, and for just a fraction of a second, you feel... Well, if your heart was beating, if you were mortal, you would now feel it miss a beat with a flutter as a very familiar but very out of place emotion registers in your mind for a fraction of a second. Devotion, trust, love. Gil, you give in. And as this burst of static drowns everything out, you clutch your hands to your ears, feel your knees buckle and collapse over the unconscious body at your feet, your eyes shut, your beast roiling in terror and pain. As in your mind's eye you see a face, a pale white face, with neatly brushed, groomed black hair, smiling at you, the face of Nathaniel Black, the Camarilla Ventru. And the look on his face is one of triumph, as he whispers, "Find the priest, bring him before me. And anyone else you find, And as he says this to you, Gil, you feel inside you genuine love. The love that you've never had for Abby. But only for a second. Only long enough for you to register that it's there. As Nathaniel Black smiles and winks. And then you're back in the here and now with Avelina shaking you, peering down, her face nearly touching yours, only an inch away. Gil! Gil, are you okay? While Barry stands in the mouth of the alleyway, arms folded, surveying everything. You alright?
Gil, like, wipes his hand over his face and looks down at the unconscious guy. Be like, motherfucker. And then he'll punch the guy. And with this guy unconscious already, imagine straight up just kills him. They're fucking... the fucking Cammy Prince pricks fucking... trying to kill him. Trying to kill the priest. Fuck.
Gil's foot comes down on the man's head, smashing it into the concrete. Even Avelina gasps. But Barry's face, devoid of emotion, simply nods. Reckon they set the trap for us, or reckon our priest friend is still hiding somewhere around here?
It's for the priest. They're after the priest. I'm guessing he'll take fucking collateral, but shit. He's after the priest. Fucking hell. Oh god, that's horrible.
What happened? Says Avelina. You drank from him, and then the next thing we know, you're on the ground, your hands are clutched to your face, and you're screaming, Black! Black! You saw him, didn't you? Says Barry. Nathaniel Black.
He nods. Yeah, he was in my mind. I could see him. Fucking prick.
But how? Says Avelina. How? Unless... Wait. Avelina kneels down over the man. She runs the tip of her finger across the wound on his neck. A single drop of blood lingers there. To her credit, she doesn't drink it. She just raises it to her face, seems to study it intensely, sniffing it. Avelina, of course, has the bloodhound advantage. As soon as she sniffs the blood, she screws her face up in disgust. They're ghouls, she says. I'd say all three of them are. This is Black's blood. Heaps of it. And he's rocking some serious power. Hysteria. Oh, Gil, you were going to say something?
No, go. You're right.
Yep.
Well, mysterious. Meanwhile, back in the shop. So I think we got off on the wrong foot, she says, hitting him with entrancement. But she's still staring into his eyes.
Does she get hungrier from entrancement?
She does, but that's alright. I think we rather got off on the wrong foot. Why are you so delicious? No, I mean, who are you? Why are you after the priest? Perhaps we have a common cause here. She's like inches from him.
He is entranced. He is entranced, and you can see him fighting an internal battle as he screws his face up, grits his teeth, and then finally spits back at you. The Cam wants the priest dead.
See, you're with the Camarilla then. Whose are you?
We were promised by Black himself. Bring the priest in, and we get the embrace.
You're one of... Okay, to be moving so quickly, you've been with Black for a while, haven't you? How old are you, my dear lad?
Older than you by far, he says.
I mean, that's not taking much, really.
I was serving Mr. Black when you were... before you were even in nappies, I dare say. Anarch
Probably right.
scum.
You have some seriously strong will to be resisting this, my powers. But then I'm getting Black's had quite a time to be improving on mine. Okay, only
And
one
yet-
final question then.
And yet he's not resisting it fully. That much you can tell, for if he was, he would answer nothing at all. In fact, knowing the Cam, you suspect if he was to resist your charms, his next course of action would be to take that stake off the ground and shove it into his own chest.
Well, I'm still keeping the eyes going. Well, alright. There's a chance you might live through this, but I really don't see it going too well. There wasn't outside. Only one final question, she says, reaching back into her kit and sliding something up toward him. Does this rag smell like chloroform to you?
You're not sure if he's going to dignify you with a response. Most likely he's going to give you another veiled stab from his master. He's going to once more tell you that you're anarch scum, but it never comes out because you shove the napkin up to his face, and immediately his eyes roll back in their sockets. He gasps and falls back, snoring immediately.
She'll roll off of him. Awkward using so close proximity. It was contact. And she'll go out to the others.
As you stand up, you hear more footfalls on broken glass, and you turn around in time to see the rest
There's
of the
priest.
coterie
Oh, no.
making their way into the store. Avelina and Barry stop for a moment, surveying the carnage that has
Well,
quickly taken over the empty store, and then Barry looks down at the body in front of you with contempt.
seriously, old ghoul. One of Black's. Could try a capture and turn, but this one's dangerous.
Well then, he says, looking at Avelina, you were right, old girl. Definitely ghouls. She shrugs and winks. But you... Gil drank the blood, and she sees the drops rolling down your bottom lip, as
Oh.
well Wisteria.
Same reaction. Had to throw that bitch out of my mind. Are you alright, Gil?
Yeah, I'm fine. It's okay. Just,
Headache, I reckon.
yeah.
Well, if he sent 3 ghouls after the priest, says Barry, and seriously high-powered ghouls, if you two are to be believed, then...
We want that priest.
Indeed you do, says a voice, wafting out of the darkness. After
And
all, does it not say that God helps those who help themselves? Do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against anyone among your people, but love your neighbor as yourself. But of course, the Cam will never abide by that, says Simon Essler, as he seems to step out of the shadows, breaking his obfuscate. Is wearing
You have a seriously
Go
bad
ahead.
habit of leading us to take care of your enemies for you, and I'm actually very amused by it at this point. It's good to see you, Simon. How have you been?
Takes a moment to steady his Akubra hat and brush some shards of glass, plaster, and dirt off his priest's robe. And then he smiles. Well, thanks to you, I'm doing quite well. I wouldn't have had it any other way. The Lord does protect those who are faithful. And oh boy, if you hadn't got here when you had, well, then I suspect you would have found this store empty, maybe signs of a struggle, and all of the juicy information I have to share with you would be lost to time.
Then let's chat, shall we? No time like the present.
No time like the present, he says. Please, he motions you into the cramped, empty manager's office behind the counter. Please, step into my office, as they say. You're barely across the threshold, all gathered in the room, when Barry immediately steps forwards, grabs the priest by the scruff of his neck, pushes him up against the wall, and says, "Okay, Estler. We risked our lives for you. Now you better have something for us." The priest squirms in Barry's hands. He shrugs and smiles, and he says, "But of course. Please." Barry looks over his shoulder. He meets your eye, Wisteria, and then he shrugs, letting the priest down. "So, to what do we owe the pleasure?" "Well, as you recall, you tasked me," says the priest, with finding your sire, with digging up dirt on old Bluey, and to do so, well, I had to pull a lot of favors, I had to pull a lot of boons, and I had to put myself very dangerously close to the Cam and their affairs, perhaps too close. And I've definitely found something useful, because they wouldn't have sent ghouls after me had I not. "And what is it?" says Barry. And the priest says, with a broad smile on his face, "My dear officer, sheriff now, I've heard, and Miss Wisteria, pleasure to make your acquaintance again, and Gil, I see you behind there as well," and he sees Evelina. "And you too, Ms. Ashford, long time no see. Good. Everyone is here." "Get on with it," says Barry. "Why did you want us all here?" "Because the information I have concerns all of you," says the priest. Now he's grinning like a child who's about to divulge a really interesting secret. "Because I found something about Bluey," he says, raising a finger, and raising another. "I've learned that the Cam are receiving a shipment, a weapon. I know where it's going to be, when they're to be taking receipt of it, and if I were to tell someone supportive of the Anarch cause this information, why, we'll take it out of the Cam's hand," says Barry. "That what you're getting at?" "Precisely. The Lord helps those who help themselves." And that is where we will end this session.
Creatures Such as We is a Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition actual play podcast presented by DM Fiat. Creatures Such as We is based on a sourcebook by Brian Holland, available at the Storyteller's Vault. Vampire the Masquerade rules are developed by Onyx Path Publishing and Paradox Interactive and published by Renegade Studios. Portions of the materials are the copyrights and trademarks of Paradox Interactive AB and are used with permission. All rights are reserved. For more information, please visit worldofdarkness.com. The music used in this podcast is composed by Kevin MacLeod, Whitebat Audio, and Ivan Duke, and is used with permission.